Welcome, welcome, everyone. I am so glad that you can join us today. I am joined by the lovely Anna Saucier. Oh my goodness, did I say that right? Is that how you say your last name?
You asked me first. Hi, Rita. It depends on where we are in the world. So it's Saucier in French. In the States, I usually say Saucier. So yeah. It's fine.
Yes. Okay, Anna Saucier is a business coach for health, life, and well-being coaches who want to share their passion and impact without hustling. Thank you so much for joining me today, Anna.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Oh my goodness. If we could just start by I know you've got the long story and just the short nutshell of how did you get here to this place? Did you always know you wanted to be a coach, and what did that journey look like?
Yeah. So in brief, it looked like I was not a coach whatsoever. It really was my journey of infertility that invited me into helping others hopefully never experience what I went through for 7 years, and became a fertility care practitioner, which is kind of a coaching role. And then by the grace of God, I found myself with a 2-year-old and a newborn and said, this one-by-one thing isn't working anymore. And I've always really enjoyed the business side of it. And so that was the point where I said, I want to pivot this so I can do this in a bigger way, and the impact that I'd like to have. And so that's when I started business coaching, first fertility care practitioners, and then expanded to other people coaching and teaching in other methods of fertility awareness-based methods, and then more into further health and well-being type roles.
Amazing, which is such a great need in this time. And I feel like growing so much because of the great need that people have. So I love it. I love that you do that. And especially, I think one thing that's always really amazed me about you is that even in just the fertility care role, I felt like for me personally, and I think other practitioners as well, where it was just more of a, this is just what you do and this is how you do it. And it didn't feel very entrepreneurial like a lot of other roles. And I always loved that you were like, no, this is very entrepreneurial. And you just were such a beautiful voice in that time for me personally. But I love that about your story too. So tell me a little bit about maybe even going back to how you got started as a fertility care practitioner. What was that journey like? Did your own cross of infertility weigh on you and bring you down that road?
Yes, absolutely. So just going back a little bit into that infertility journey, we ended up doing 4 years of NaPro technology, which is relevant here because probably your people are familiar with fertility care and NaPro. And being in that is so, not the NaPro technology in particular, but being in that infertility journey, everything is so wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
All of the decisions that you make, and just that there's this hyper awareness on that, the actions that you're taking or not taking, or, what am I putting in my body and what am I not? And there's all kinds of things that came up through that. But when the turning point that led to the decision to become a fertility care practitioner, I think largely came from finally entering into 2 years of counseling, to work through that, and then coming to a place where I always struggle to say that because these are the stories you don't want to hear when you're struggling with infertility, of maybe we won't have children.
Yeah.
And, and maybe I can still have a life, a fruitful life. And I could never say that. Before, I would never be able to say without just completely breaking down. And so coming to that place, I really think it opened the opportunity to receive something else, and so, it was really only 2 months, I think, later. And I should ask, is your audience mostly Catholic? Okay.
Yeah.
I was in adoration, and it really just came. We'd been doing charting through fertility care, and going on the NaPro technology journey. So I was very much aware of that, and I was in adoration, and I just instantly thought, the Lord put this thought in my mind: I could do that. Like I could do that. I could help women in this way. And it was a month later, I was on a plane to Texas to do the training in Dallas, and that started it. And going through, it was actually 9 months into that we became pregnant with my first.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. Ah, I love that. So do you feel like in that time of entering into becoming a fertility care practitioner and having that realization, like, was there, tell me a little more about your heart journey in that time before you conceived your first? Because I know, like, in hindsight, right, we can say like, oh yeah, it was, I say that all the time. Like, it was 4.5 years of infertility between our, two of our kiddos. And it's like we hit a fast forward switch, right? But there were so many, like, especially when I look back, even like the highlight reel version of that, like, and then my heart changed in this way. And then I realized I would be okay, whatever the Lord had for us. And then we found out we were expecting, right? So what's your highlight reel of those 9 months? Because that's intense, I imagine.
Well, let's see. Of those 9 months in particular, I think I mostly just allowed my heart to expand, to hold more, these women, and to hold something that I wasn't like so grasped onto.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I feel that came out of that is, as a fertility care practitioner who had NaPro doctors around too, I was helping a lot of others who were navigating fertility, but I was also helping a lot of moms with 5 and 6 and 7 kids who were like, I can't do this anymore, And so, when I had 6.5 years of infertility on my back. And then in front of me, you have this woman who is like, I can't have any more kids. Like, I can't,
Yeah.
I feel like such a gift that I received from that is the ability to know hard, whatever the hard looks like, to have compassion for that hard and say, I've been through hard, like, I get it. It doesn't really matter what your hard looks like.
Yeah.
I get you, and I will be with you. So, I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but that's what comes to mind or to heart when I think of like, what was the heart space like? And it just was like an ability to expand in receptivity.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I know those, it's so funny, the reality of a fertility care practitioner. For those of you that aren't fertility care practitioners, there's like this, you can have 3 appointments back to back. And the first one, someone's crying because they just want to get pregnant so bad. And the next one, someone's crying because every time they look at their husband, they get pregnant. And then the next one's crying for a totally different reason. And at the end, you can easily feel this like exhaustion of emotionally being present to all of these people. And I think that can also be a heavy cross when you are struggling to conceive, and then it tends to happen where we will have different people at different times that are all trying not to get pregnant or all trying to get pregnant. And that's so beautiful that even with that you were able to journey with them, because it's so true, right? Like there's so much about just carrying a cross. It's just, it might not look exactly like our neighbor's cross, but it doesn't mean we can't walk with them, right? And that's so beautiful. Oh, and I love that so much. So then looking back on your own fertility journey, and when you finally did conceive your kiddos, were you ever given like, this has been why, or this is your diagnosis, or anything like that in your process?
Yes, several. So yeah, over, of course, the same as many people. The first 2 years was going to just whatever OBGYN was handy. Before I knew about NaPro technology, and told like, just every other day for the next 6 months and see what happens. And then we learned about NaPro technology and started doing the charting first, and then the investigations with a complete hormone profile. And the things like on paper that showed for me was limited mucus was basically the only thing. And so I was really grateful. Then the next step that our doctor took was to do the ultrasound series. So we went in for ultrasound. Even the labs, even the blood work was fairly normal, although there was some signs of low progesterone. So we did the ultrasound series. We're going in, I think it was daily, and I don't remember exactly, and seeing what's going on with ovulation. And lo and behold, I had luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome, meaning my follicles don't open. There's no egg, and it's very possible that I'd never actually ovulated ever. I mean, who knows, unless we would have gone back and done ultrasounds the whole time. But yeah, that was the main diagnosis, LUFS, or luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome. And often that is accompanied by other things, like it was low progesterone. My husband's sperm count was a little bit low, which was not the biggest concern. And I also had, probably still have, PCOS with an androgen excess. Never had, like, everybody tends to throw out PCOS if you don't tend to be overweight, is no insulin resistance, those kinds of things. But definitely had some PCOS as well.
Okay. Wow. So with the LUFS, so how did they approach that, and what was the way that you were able to naturally conceive your 2 babies, right?
Yeah. So this becomes another really interesting part of the story, because for 2.5 years, on most cycles, we did have to take breaks, but in most cycles, we would go in, or I would go in on like day 3 and get an ultrasound to see what was going on, see how many follicles were there, and if there was one that was left over from the previous cycle, because this is what can happen with LUFS. And then I would take a medication to kind of prep the eggs. And then I don't like to give the names here, because then people like to grab them and say that's going to work for me, and then this was 10 years ago. So things have changed. So I would take the medications to kind of prep the egg environment, and then I would go in again for an ultrasound a few days before anticipated ovulation to see where the primary follicle was in terms of size. And then doctor would predict, okay, so it'll be mature on about this day and around this time. And we would do an injection to try to get that follicle to release. Wow. Right. So we do the injection at home. My husband would do it. And then we would go, again, according to my chart, when it would be about, I think we'd usually do 4 or 5 days after ovulation, or the time of ovulation, to see what happened. We do an ultrasound again to see, did it rupture, or did we miss the timing, and and then it got bigger. And so in those 2.5 or so years, we started with Clomid as the PrEP medication, which I responded completely, like hyper responded to, and ended up with like 15 mature follicles and total breakdown, hormonally and emotionally, because that's a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, Clomid into something else and then something else. And we did different types of medications for the injection. And then, so none of that actually worked.
Wow.
And sometimes we would say, we have the ultrasound after the time of ovulation. It's like, it ruptured, it released the egg, but we didn't become pregnant. And I just want to take a minute to be so grateful for my NaPro technology doctor, because she never gave up on us. You know, some people will say, okay, we're going to try this for, you know, a year goes by, a year and a half, 2 years. And we, you know, then we got to the point where through all of this, my husband was fantastic at like, let's take a break and go on a trip. You know, let's go to San Francisco. Let's book a, I remember, what are those, what's that deal thing called? Anyway, I'm not going to remember it. We booked like a last minute 10-day trip to China, you know, and
I love it.
Yeah. And we did those kinds of things. And I'm so grateful for that. And then we got to a summer where like, we're going to take the whole summer and just stop. And my doctor said, okay, great. And I've been doing a lot of research into egg quality supplements, and this has become more known now, but this was, again, 9 years ago. And so why don't we try, like, are you willing to just start a couple of supplements? And we also did some diet changes. So I think it was gluten and dairy and limited sugar. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I think that's what it was through the summer. And then we came back and said, okay, let's start again. And the cycle that we came back to, we went in, we did the prep stuff at the beginning of the cycle. It's ultrasound and the medication. And then we went to go to get the ultrasound to determine the timing of ovulation. And I had ovulated on my own.
Wow.
As underserved follicle syndrome, remember, like, doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So she's like, we missed it, but I'm pretty sure that your body ovulated. And we're like, okay. Same thing happened the second cycle. We missed the timing and I ovulated. Third cycle, she said, let's not do anything. You know, let's skip the medication. Let's skip the ultrasounds. And we conceived Levon that cycle.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, Anna. And with your sweet little girl, because she's number 2, right?
Oh yeah, and she, as soon as Levon was like a master breastfeeder, so my cycles didn't return until it was like about 18 months, you know.
Yes.
And we started to conceive again the very next cycle, and then second cycle she was conceived, no problem.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing! How beautiful!
Yeah.
And how old are they now?
They are 7 and 5.
Oh, so fun. Such fun ages.
They're sweet, independent. I'm doing it my way. Human beings.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that is such a beautiful story, Anna. I love that. And so often too, and this is why I love doing, bringing women like yourself on that have had such a heart-wrenching journey of infertility, but now have been able to come through it, not only for the grace and wisdom of what you've learned in those hard years, but also, you know, when women receive these diagnoses now, they feel like they've been deflated, right? Or like, okay, here's what it is. And this means, you know, what Dr. Google says, right? Or whatever it is. And we're blessed to be in these circles in the restorative wellness, holistic thinking of medical practitioners that don't see it that way as like a reduction of thought in terms of their diagnosis. But it's so beautiful to hear about your sweet babies and your body just needed a little support, right? Sometimes it's that. It just, oh, I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
It's always kind of a mini journey to, you know, to
yes.
tell.
Yes, definitely. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I love that. So now having you know, gone through your own journey, like what is it that you say to women, or what is it you want to say to women that are in the midst of their own infertility journeys and feel like they're never going to get to that other side, whatever it is?
Yeah, it's always such a tricky thing, and because you have so many people who say so many things, and we want to say something, we want to do something that's And it's like we have the natural human empathy to like help. And you know, the one biggest thing that I always want to say is I'm with you. You know, I hear you, I see you, and I don't know what the problem is. You know, I don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
Because that's so many people are one is, well, did you try this? And did you try this? And if you think differently, and if you know, I mean, we did that. We bought a 1-bedroom condo by the beach. You know? If you just do that, it'll happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the main thing that I want to say. Like, this is hard and this sucks, and I'm here to listen, you know, and to be with you. And what, you know, the next thing is, what do you think? What do you think you need? Like, what would feel good to you? And that's mostly in terms of support, or what do I need to hear? You know, what does my body need? Or because that's a shift from first people telling you what to do, and then looking externally for answers of what to do next, mostly because that's the medical and educational model that most of us grew up in. You know, I don't have the answers. I have to look somewhere else for the answers. Yeah. But help, you know, becoming more in tune with your own body and emotions. And I mean, I do a lot of this work on the business side. You know, you are the solution. There's no external golden nugget solution out there. It's very much part of you. And, you know, absolutely with God, and that, you know, in the relationship that is there as well. And that, you know, so I say that not to exclude God, but to say you in that relationship as a, you know, as a created human being.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I can't help but think of a conversation I had not that long ago. And I think this just tells your point, what you're getting at so well. And I was talking to somebody who was struggling with infertility. And she said, I told my husband I'm not feeling well today. And he said, when do you ever feel well? And I couldn't help but think, she's coming to me telling me she's struggling to conceive. And she's telling me she doesn't feel well in her own body ever. There's something else we need to be doing, right? That's the, like, you can find these answers, right? Like, we just need to keep digging. We need to not say, this is who I am, right? I just always feel crummy, and I always feel, but we need to dive into that and starting to listen to our body again, and listening to these signs and symptoms. And I think it's hard because we're in this world where we go to the doctor and we have all these signs and symptoms, and they're like, that doesn't really matter. Like, this is your diagnosis and here's the medication, right? It's so reductive that, but that's exactly, I think what I hear you saying is that's exactly what, you know, we can do so much on our own too.
Right. And when we're encouraged to, well, I don't think we can just tell somebody like, you're safe in your body, you know, and you can get to know yourself, because it's not safe. If it's not safe, it's not safe. And so we need to work through that very, very gently, to become more and more safe in our person, in our body, in ourself. And then, you know, I believe that things can come up that can show us a more whole idea of what's going on. You know, like, for example, in working through those 2 years of counseling, one of the things that I realized is that since teenagehood, because especially as a teenager, I didn't have a good relationship with my mother, and, you know, bless her, I love her, and and she was doing her absolute best with 5 children. And at some point, I had made a decision that I do not want to be like my mom. Part of that, you know, is we make these agreements that God honors and and our body honors. Yeah. But part of her is mother. Yeah. And so, you know, it's just, I use that as an example of the awareness of
the things that might need to be let go of and released that we don't even know are there until we start to go deeper into the journey, you know, and to say, oh yeah, I don't want to be like these parts, but I want, you know, but I want to be mother.
Yeah.
And I believe that that was a huge part. And then also to recognize other patterns of feeling. And a big one is that we begin protecting ourselves from the cyclic disappointment.
Right.
And that huge protection, our brain doesn't always know, like, no, I'm protecting myself from this, but not from this. And so we build this like really protective, self-protective bubble around us that that makes us unable to receive.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that like really, well, it actually made me think of something, and I'll come back to that. But it reminds me, a few weeks ago, I was at a Lenten Bible study with some friends, and I said something about the wounds that I have from my childhood, and God had like pursued me, especially last fall. I was just sharing a really beautiful story about the way He pursued me to help me identify those wounds and heal them and move forward in my own journey. And somebody said something about, oh, maybe my daughter has a wound and that's why she's doing X, Y, Z. And someone else said, well, she grew up in your home. She doesn't have wounds. And I said, oh, honey, none of us get to adulthood without wounds. We could have the best family ever. And it just happens. It's part of living in this sinful world. We all have these wounds, and they do tend to come up in times like this, right? Our body, to think about conceiving, I mean, we have to feel safe down to our very core for us to be able to open ourselves up for this amazing, monumentous task, right? And so when we have these spiritual wounds, and especially when they're very intricately linked to what it means to be a mother, it's a really tough place to advance if we're not first addressing that and seeking that healing and that wholeness.
Yeah. Yes. In a very well supported space.
Yes. I work with women a lot with that too. Like, you know, we can change your diet. We can get you away from the standard American diet to start to nourish your body. But if we're not also doing some of this tough mindset work, right? If you're just badgering yourself all the time, I'm a bad person, I'm, you know, not doing this all right, or I screwed up in the past and now it's all over for me. Like if we continue to badger, then we also can't move forward in that health journey. And I really do believe, and I think that we have something very special as Catholics, that we can really mind, body, spirit, like let's heal, right? It doesn't have to be this like just the body. Let's just work on like healing your body. Yes, but we also have to be sure that we're like bringing our whole self along, right? And that's why we're here, right? Like ultimately.
Totally. Yeah. Yes. Because when we try to do it in pieces, then we create like a disintegrated, you know, fighting against which part is safe? You know, these are not, they don't jive with each other, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's not all coalescing. And I think there's something too, and honestly, in a lot of ways, your witness, just being who you are and living your family life the way that you do, has helped me realize that there's also this aspect of of dreaming, right? And of seeing like how we want our life to be different and what it is that we can seek and strive after, even if we can't realize this one dream. And I think sometimes that just helps us to be able to shift that focus, right? It doesn't mean that we've given up on the dream of a baby, but we can also say, but what other dreams are there? At one point for my husband and I, when we had our journey with infertility, we said, you know what, if this is the only kiddos we ever get, let's just start traveling. Let's just not worry anymore. And truly the fact that Anna travels the world with her kiddos and her husband, we were like, people do this, right? And sometimes you just need to see somebody doing that. And I truly we've realized that is a really big dream of ours. And we're going to, praise the Lord, be able to start making that a reality. But I really credit that to you, Anna, just living your life so boldly and beautifully and knowing what that is, how to dream and how to pursue those things. That's just it's so incredible. So what would you say to somebody that, how could they, you know, maybe start down this path to healing if it's something they've never really thought about before?
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. I think it begins with awareness. And if we can start with a tiny bit more awareness of self and giving compassion to self. And at the very start of that is, this is what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
You know, the tiniest first step of creating that safety and that acceptance within the self is saying, this is what I'm feeling. This is, you know, this is my truth right now. And I accept that this is how I feel.
Yeah.
This is a big part of what we do. I'm almost certified as an EFT practitioner. We just tapping to the nervous system and saying, hey, nervous system, we're feeling this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, because oftentimes the alternative of what happens is I feel so sad and empty. And then immediately the judgment comes in. I shouldn't feel that way, or that's not helpful, or, you know, whatever those judgments are, that's most often what happens. And so we can start to remove the judgment simply by acknowledging, this is what I feel. Period.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I like that. So with the women that don't have their own business, but they want to work with someone like yourself, like what kind of options are there out there for them?
That's a great question. So in what way?
Yeah. So maybe probably, like, I'm thinking especially for women that are struggling with infertility that really want like a guide to help them walk down this journey of the emotional walk. I have a few books that I tend to recommend to people, but I'm just curious, what are some like resources or something that that you know of that could be helpful for them? Obviously, if they have their own business, we can talk more about how they could work with you too. But yeah, like what would you say to somebody that that is, you know, in the infertility realm and that's their journey right now?
Yeah. I don't know that I'd say this is, you know, these are the 3 places to go to, because it does depend on, and I'm always happy to talk through that with somebody. It really depends on what that person feels safe doing and the level of trust, you know, or safety that they have with certain different practices and people. You know, it's just such an individual thing, or somebody who says, yeah, I want to do the emotion work and I want the medical too, or no, I'm ready to pause on the whole medical stuff and I just want somebody to hear me out. So there's, I just lost my train of thought, but yeah, I think it's really important to ask, like, what do I actually want in support?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah.
And I think acknowledging too that there's more than one avenue to pursue that, right? It doesn't just have to be at those 30 minutes at your doctor's office once every 2 or 3 months. Like, you know, really looking outside of that and being mindful that you are more than just, you need more than just that 30 minutes at your doctor's office and that.
Yeah. And you get to design that. I mean, I think the most important part is for people to feel more empowered in their own healing. So it's less so of like, I'm dealing with infertility, or I'm struggling with infertility. What resources out there who deals with infertility, right? And so part of to empower that person to say, no, what do I want that support to look like for me?
Yeah.
You know, I want somebody who's not going to tell me anything, you know, and that's hard it's hard to navigate when you've never done that before. Mm-hmm. That's what I would encourage people to do first. I say, what do I want right now? What would my perfect support look like? Mm. if I could just design it myself, you know, and then you have this like template to kind of go out and say, you're not just picking and choosing from what's out there, but there are a lot of different styles. And then you get to be the one who's driving it. And, you know, that doesn't always work out perfectly, but that's the direction that I think we need to move in.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's really beautiful. And I think in so doing too, we can oftentimes find things that we didn't even realize are there. I think it's really an exciting time to need help, to need support, because with so many, you know, small businesses and so much that's coming up from like these grassroots movements of these people that have walked through similar journeys that have created something because they wish they had it, right? It's so beautiful to see some of the things that are happening now and the support that's there. It's true. I like that.
Yeah. So be able to define your own boundaries around that. I mean, I have a great friend who continues to struggle with infertility and has found a fabulous community that she loves with a woman who runs a secular group for infertility. And she's very much Catholic. And she said, this is the support that feels really, really good to me. So it may not look exactly, exactly the way that you might expect until you start digging into it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love that. So if somebody did want to work with you, tell me a little bit more about what you're offering right now in your business and where they can find you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love to work mainly with coaches. And those are usually life, parenting, health, wellness, fertility, basically women who are helping other women to improve their lives. And what I really focus on as a business coach is the foundation between this is who I deeply am and my passion that I want to serve and share with others, and bringing that together with ethical marketing. So, you know, we see you all have been exposed to marketing that just feels yucky, and, you know, people are realizing how much it doesn't feel good. And so my passion is to shift that back to really understanding the self, like we've been talking about, a greater and greater awareness of this is who I am, and feeling safer in that, and not being distracted by the thoughts and the emotions that we don't understand or that kind of happen out of our command. That's really what lack of confidence is being distracted by everything that's going on internally. And so we can understand that better. We can step into confidence and say, this is who I am. Do you want to work with me? You know, and that's basically what true ethical marketing is. Like, let's build a mutually beneficial relationship together. And so that's what I really love to do with people, is bring out that true self and marry that with really great marketing, because marketing is simply, this is me. Do you want to build a relationship together? You know, do you want to?
I love that. That's awesome. And where can they find you?
The best place to find me right now is on my Facebook profile, and just chat with me. So we're right now kind of playing with the different models of what's happening in the business. And so the pages that I would send would not be the most accurate information. And I love to just have conversations anyway. So I don't know exactly what the Facebook link is, but it's Anna Saucier on Facebook, and then DM me.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Anna, for joining me today.
Thank you, Rita, so much. I appreciate it.